Hey there, welcome to episode 169 of the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program. I am your host, Dan Hugo, as usual. We are recording this at 11:19 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time here in Greater Vegas. Late night on Thursday, May 21, 2026. We normally publish new episodes of Cafe Genius Impresarios on Friday mornings, so hopefully we'll get to jump on that. Will we make it? Today's title and topic, Missing Pieces. I believe you'll probably, well, I don't know if you'll be able to tell. It's kind of similar, but my voice is enjoying the current weird weather. It's just a fact of life. We'll get around it. Usually in the morning, it's a little bit better, but I got some stuff to do in the morning, so we'll get this done now. We'll suffer through my congested voice, and we'll survive. Missing pieces. I think this is an important episode. My stream of consciousness has been committed to my standard episode structure, outline, sections, bullet items. Let's see how it goes. If you're not familiar with the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program, let me tell you. This is an audio program, occasionally with interviews, although it has been a very long time. Mostly audio essays concerning our entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem of the Greater Vegas area. Cafe Genius, cafe with two F's and no accent, and genius, these are two terms that were chosen to reflect sort of a startup mindset. Cafe with two F's and no accent is an homage to Cafe Centro, a coffee shop in San Francisco where startups start. That was their tagline. It's where Jack Dorsey used to hang out with his laptop and plot the destruction of the planet, Twitter, whatever it's called now. And other people used to just go there and work on their startup ideas. I had been there many times. It was located in South Park, San Francisco, an actual park with grass and trees and park benches. It was very near the ballpark at the time. I don't know if it was there for the Pac-Bell ballpark, but the AT&T ballpark, and then later, and I think now, the Oracle ballpark is an Oracle everywhere now. Cafe Centro, unfortunately, did not survive very long after the pandemic lockdown days. It was a cool spot. I've often said that the Greater Vegas area needs multiple Cafe Centro locations where startups start. Do we have any? I don't know. We'll have to talk about that someday. I think I've done an entire episode on that, in fact, but we should do another one. And Genius, as in the Genius Lunches, where the people participating in startups in various ways and of various types during the downtown project days would gather for an ad hoc lunch now and then and do some gossiping, maybe some updates, who's working on what, who needs to be introduced to whom, etc., etc. It was your normal lunchtime thing. No need for an all-day affair, transactional engagements. So real interactions, introductions, introspections, and then back to whatever it was you were doing. The Genius Lunch could make a return. I tried once. It didn't really go over so well. We'll try again. That's how this works. Impresarios with two S's, a correct though less common spelling. Impresarios are the people making it happen. I'd like to think I am one of those people. And as we'll discuss towards the end of this episode, we need more people to be looking inside our ecosystem, seeing how they could make it easier for people to get around, take advantage of it, make use of it, contribute to it, and so on. So that's the deal. Cafe Genius Impresarios. I selected the name because we needed to call Pitch Workout Room something other than Pitch Workout Room. So Cafe Genius was the thing, the entity that coordinated the Pitch Workout Room at Tech Alley, 19 consecutive months. And then we had our Meetup Collaboratory and our Genius Roundtable Cohort 1. One of these days we'll do Cohort 2. We have Initiative 2026. The year is slipping by. We'll have to start that at some point. And there's more. The entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem needs us and needs you to take a good hard look, see what's going on. Those are the kinds of things we talk about. Hopefully, wherever you found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes, including a brief summary, which I will read to you. And only 2 links today. I will comment on this, but I didn't want to. The things that I would link to today are things that actually should be discussed at the Genius Roundtable, so that we can not link to what others are saying, but report on what we have discovered and what we might say about that. So on these various topics I will discuss today in this episode, which will come off as something of a rant, and it will probably be a little bit long, but these are the sorts of things that we should rap about at the Genius Roundtable and come up with some ideas. As a result of the first cohort, I did write, I think it's a 15-page document about what the greater Vegas area, what the ecosystem is lacking to be a little bit more viable, a little bit more vital, perhaps. Okay, sorry, I had to interrupt myself there and turn off my air conditioner. It adds some noise. It adds a substantial amount of acoustic noise. I normally filter out the steady state ambient noise. That's not really applicable to noise, steady state, but your ambient noise level without the air conditioner. So it only adds unnecessary noise. Okay, so anyway, I interrupted myself. Vital Vegas, I think that name is taken. But yeah, we need to understand the ecosystem in which we are attempting to be functional. And if you read the books, and if you listen to the people who claim to know such things, the entrepreneurs in an entrepreneurial place, region, economy, ecosystem, the entrepreneurs need to be proactively involved, engage with each other, explore, find out what's working, what isn't, take ownership a little bit. I know there's never enough time, but it is essential. Who knows better about entrepreneurialism than people being entrepreneurial or trying to be? I think we're going to touch on that too, so hang tight. The summary of today's episode then. A few observations about some things that appear to be missing in action, either not to be found or not easy to discover. Of course, we're talking about the greater Vegas area for the most part. Both are problematic in different ways, either missing or hard to find, and both can be solved or addressed with a modicum of effort from a small, interested crowd. I'll give you one guess what that crowd needs to be. The links, as usual, and again, I didn't add any extra links, and I'm going to talk about that first. Cafe Genius homepage, Cafe, 2 Fs, no accent over the E, CAFFE, Genius, GENIUS, no space, cafegenius.org. The website needs to inherit a lot of stuff from the old website concerning Pitch Workout Room, Pitch Mingle, and it needs some extra info about the Genius Roundtable Cohort 2. I really wish we could have started that months ago, but one of the troubles is getting the word out, which I think we're going to talk about a little bit. Some of these things you may have heard before, but I'm putting them all together and not wrapping it in a bow. The host profile page linking everything. Their host is me, Dan Hugo. My profile page at buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo has been there for 5 years and 2 months. March was the anniversary. There you will find links to all of my various audio programs and various places to find them, including Buy Me an Update, which is published first at Buy Me a Coffee, hence the name, published on Monday mornings. I used to publish it there exclusively. Now I publish it 2 hours later in all of the usual places. Buymeacoffee.com does contain a freeform profile page with all those links I just mentioned, links to some projects. I need to add the Smart City stuff. I think I realized that this morning, earlier today. I think it was around noon, actually. And then some affiliate links if you'd like to support this effort without spending any actual money. You can buy some of my favorite coffee beans available on Amazon and elsewhere, or products that I actually use, services I actually use, including the Cash App, which is another Jack Dorsey vehicle, part of Block, I think it is. Jack Dorsey is not a great, anyway, I don't want to, you know what I mean. Okay, so you do not need to spend any money at buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo, though. You can visit it to find the links and then go on about your business. Any funds that arrive through that particular platform do go towards the purchase of coffee or coffee accessories. It's what powers all of this, don't you know? Okay, on with the show. No links. That's the first section. There may be some relevant links floating around in the world and in previous episodes of this program. Some of the links would be to previous episodes of this program, perhaps, and then the links contained within those episodes. But generally speaking, the missing pieces are better realized as emergent features of the entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem since oftentimes implementing something just like it is in some other places does not yield ideal results. In other words, we should not consider ourselves to be the next or 2.0 or whatever of some other places. We should be better at being this place. I've said that a few times over the years. It's still true. I will plug it now, maybe again. The Genius Roundtable second cohort participation is a great way to join in this conversation. Surely your list of links would differ from mine. We should get together and take some notes, see where we think we might be headed, and whether we need to suggest some changes. When I say we, I surely mean you and myself, of course, but the number of people answering to you would ideally be dozens to start, maybe more. A podcast episode and its show notes is a nice vector. Maybe you'll stumble upon it at some point, or maybe somebody will find it through a search engine or something, but far from the best place to store links for purposes of fostering discussion, analysis, and maybe growth and improvement over time. We actually need like a wiki, or don't say Slack. We need a place where we can kind of have a rolling update of documentation, jotting down ideas and resources and references and so on. I am speaking mostly of the entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem, of course, but also in general, the ecosystem on the whole and all of its various moving parts and moving ecosystems. You can have, I gave an example of this in a previous episode. You could have an ecosystem, say a desert, hey, like Vegas, but you can have water. You can have little pools of water, little oases. Is that the plural of oasis? The ecosystem around that water would be slightly different than the ecosystem around a cactus. So there's little nested ecosystems where some flora and fauna may survive and maybe even thrive based on the exact components of a particular nested ecosystem. Anyway, a podcast episode is not the place to store this stuff, though. It's a good place to plant some seeds, which I will do today, as I always do each week. But really, the second cohort of the Genius Roundtable is really, it's something to really think about. I know people are probably tired of hearing of it, both of you listening right now, but it's a better idea than you think. Even if you think it's a good idea, it's even better. All of the items in today's episode are really conversation starters, and as usual, when it comes to the less positive stuff, I will happily be wrong, but I fear that I may not be. So yeah, if we get that Genius Roundtable going, second cohort, a lot of the stuff I'm going to talk about right now could be elaborated upon, argued against, or for. Painting the big picture. Let me get some water. This episode's going to be long. Will my voice make it? Painting the big picture. Our local media is not great, sorry to say. I have mentioned this a few times per episode, perhaps, but lately I'm noticing that there is actually more reporting on bad news, like housing market and tourism number concerns. The housing market is all over the place and not great. Tourism numbers are slightly up, even though the tourism numbers are up a little tiny bit, 1-2%, somewhere in there for now. Remember that those are numbers that are up over the previous year, which were down all year. So a little up over a bigger down is not bad news, but it's not. Let's not celebrate just yet. I don't mean to be a downer. I'm trying to be realistic. They report on crime, of course, but a lot of crime has been reported on, and they're not. Well, crime is not great. People get hit by cars, and there's more shooting than there really should be. But that's making the papers, so to speak. And some business closures are getting reported on, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. I guess it's good to see that the press is covering these things and not trying to tuck them away. In particular, the shutdown with no real public notice, apparently, of the infamous Heart Attack Grill on Fremont, which just sort of happened along with a link to a social media post somewhere that I think the owner made or the manager or something. I think it was a social media post somewhere that Vegas ain't like it used to be, was the gist. And then yesterday, that would be Wednesday, because it is still Thursday night. Yesterday, on Wednesday, I saw news items, more than one, around the shutdown of the lone, as in there's only one location, of Beard Papa. It's a bakery. It's actually, I don't think I've been to that bakery here, but I've been to Beard Papa elsewhere before. Pretty good. I feel like cream puffs and other Asian bakery delights. So today, Thursday, they were reporting on an Instagram post from the founder, somebody important at Beard Papa, the lone location in Vegas. So this is another no public notice event, much prior, like they didn't make an announcement 2 weeks ago or a month ago that they were about to shut down. But in fact, the place shut down today. Today, Thursday. So Wednesday, the news was reported on an Instagram post. I don't recall the date of the Instagram post, but again, this wasn't like, hey, next month we're shutting down. It's like, tomorrow, we're done. And then there was a lot of premature reporting. Oh, their website says they're still open on the weekend. That's not reporting. That's copy and pasting silliness. But yeah, so these two locations shut down like immediately. The news of the Heart Attack Grill shutting down was like, they shut down. They're done. Whatever time it was. They didn't renew their lease in the case of a Heart Attack Grill. So I guess they're done. Social media posts are the new source of truth. That's not good. Some with and some without commentary. There seems to be a trend in the restaurant business here in Vegas that, well, business is not going well. Commentary from owners and whatnot. Occasionally there will be a brief interview or a statement that makes it into an article announcing the closure of some place, usually a place that's been in business for many years. The Beard Papa place, I believe, opened in 2022. It was founded in Japan in 1999. But 2022, so not too bad. The Heart Attack Grill was open for 12 years? And then there have been some other places open decades, and they have shut down. Business is not going well. Hard to pay the rent, hard to keep up with bills and pay employees. And of course, that affects the ability of people who live here in the local area, locals who live here in the Vegas area to patronize other businesses local in the Vegas area. Tourists don't always get to these smaller or longer lasting legacy native businesses. So if locals don't have the money to spend, it's a cascade. Not good. Formula One is renewed for a decade though, 2037, I believe, through that year. But local businesses are suffering with downturns, and who knows what is coming for the summer travel season and gas prices and whatnot. It could be very interesting. That includes jet fuel prices. What does the big picture look like now if we are painting the big picture? This goes back to the coherent cohesion idea that I presented in an episode similarly named, where there is some sort of plan and communication about that plan in a way that makes sense. I think the messaging is left to chance in general with the fun economy, and that's a trademark granted in February 2025 to the UNLV Office of Economic Development. Use it carefully and wisely. The fun economy, getting a lot of attention, and rightfully so. The fun economy is a fundamental when it comes to Vegas. It's kind of our thing. I've lived here for 13 years. I think I can say we and us and our thing and so on. But also as usual, the fun economy gets the attention. It's what people recognize. If you tell people that are coming to Vegas, hey, you should come and check out Beard Papa, they're going to be, no, I'm coming there to stay at a casino at a resort on the Strip and visit the casino. And no, they're not doing that either, but you know what I mean. Sorry. I've said it before. I think our local media and our local economic thinkers, those are in the government and the public-private partnerships and the other agencies and all that, do not know quite how to report on the elements of the economic diversification efforts going on since 2018, at least, other than an announcement now and then, some company coming to town, creating 300 jobs, plus or minus, whatever. But without the big picture filled in on a timeline with potential risks spelled out so people can prepare or can be prepared in their own business pursuits. Hey, tourism is not looking great. We're going to be raising the prices and changing the fundamental demographics of who comes to Vegas. Here are some things to think about if you're trying to operate a business here. So I don't know exactly what the communication is like between retail storefront business owners and, say, the Chamber of Commerce. If they're not members, I guess who cares, right? But I think this is important. If you are trying to diversify an economy, I believe, my opinion, I could be wrong, I believe that there should be more communication with local businesses and members of the economy, especially those who depend on it to maintain their businesses, and not less. I don't know where we are in that spectrum. It'd be good to find out. Maybe we should ask a bunch of small business owners, startups. Observability. If we look at how monthly tourism data, big professional sports news regarding teams moving in, stadiums being built, what about airport capacity? Allegedly, the Harry S. Reid International Airport is at or near capacity. That should be good, right? But our tourism numbers were only up by like 1.7% or something. Must be layovers, I guess. The Brightline West route situation is assuming because Brightline in Florida is having some financial issues. I think Brightline West was looking for some additional funding to bridge while they continue to something. And so on. There's all these moving parts. So on and so on and so on. There does not seem to be a coherent economic impact report published for public consumption around these sorts of things. There's news reporting and there's a mention here and there. You'll find, who's the guy who writes for casino.org? That might be Vital Vegas. Las Vegas Weekly will publish some, it's mostly gossip style reporting, heard on the street. There are various YouTubers who do focus more on this stuff, less on wandering around on the strip and more on like economic impact events and so on. What is it? Miles to Vegas, Miles to Memories, MTM. Those guys kind of cover that stuff. Jacob's Life in Vegas, I think, covers more economic considerations now and then than other YouTubers. But anyway, that's sort of, we get a smattering of confetti news confetti every once in a while, like a news cannon that just fires detritus up into the air, and whatever falls down, that's what you got. That's what you got. So observability, if we look at how monthly tourism data, big professional sports and all that stuff, so we covered that. There may be something held to members of the Las Vegas Chamber. Something held up. Like, hey, look, here's what you got to look out for. Or the inner circle attached to the LVCVA and the LVGEA, maybe Clark County Commission. Who knows? Who knows who's finding out the real details? Maybe the ownership of various casino properties, whoever that is nowadays. Who knows? Pure speculation on my part, but there must be people who have the data needed to make some near-term predictions, at least on the small business front. I mean, I'm sure people have that data. I hope so. Or maybe there are decisions being made in the seats or by the seats of select pairs of pants. It's late. I'm messing up my own script here. Who writes that? Oh, that's me. I have spoken of this before, that our city as a system, I think that's the actual title of the episode, should be observable, maybe taking advantage of the existing open data infrastructure. That's how Code for Vegas entered the fray here in the greater Vegas area about 12 years ago, I think it was. So there's open data infrastructure where data could be published. You can find business license records. You could find in the geocommons, you'll find administrative boundaries of the different wards in the cities, parking lots, all kinds of stuff. There's all kinds of data in there, and it's open data. So why not publish some of this stuff about our economic indicators and how they're changing over the years and so on? We could publish enough data on a regular basis so that there is a consistent basis for analysis and assessment, whether by the people at the CBER, and I don't remember what that stands for right now. Is it the something Business and Economic Research? Oh, Center for Business and Economic Research. There you go. I did remember at UNLV, they published some data, but I covered this a week or two ago that doesn't seem to be current or really coherent. The LVCVA, the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, they publish data in their sector, in their area of interest, their purview. And then the LVGEA, the Global Economic Alliance, they publish data. I don't know if they publish tabular data. I haven't wandered through their website in a little while, but they are focused on key industries. There used to be a little bit more focus on the entrepreneurial ecosystem. Sorry, a little phone noise there. They used to focus a little bit more on the entrepreneurial ecosystem here, but I don't know if they've pulled back from that in the with additional or with moving some of that attention to existing larger, more established businesses and companies to consider relocating or establishing a presence here in Greater Vegas per the economic diversification plans. So I can't speak to that. I have not had a chance to meet with anybody from the LVGEA or talk to them. So one of these days, or maybe the government economic development organizations for the cities, Clark County, the GOED, the Governor's Office of Economic Development. So these people must have data floating around. And the people at these organizations hopefully are able to see this data. But what about small business owners or someone considering opening a small business? Maybe somebody considering relocating here to form a startup back in the downtown project days. One of these days we will do a proper deep dive on this, but anecdotally, many years ago when I was speaking to the people who come here, a lot of commentary was like, I came here and then it wasn't quite what I was hoping for, and there was really nobody here to help too much. And those are individual anecdotes. So even though there were some resources in place, it wasn't totally clear that they were functional or useful. Anecdotal, again. Oh, please. Amazon products are not podcast friendly, certainly not recording friendly. The economy of Greater Vegas and Nevada on the whole actually has many moving parts, believe it or not. The diversification efforts among them. So those are some of the moving parts. Who are we trying to get to come here? Tourism. Who are we trying to get to come here? Startup scene. I don't like that word. Who are we trying to get to come out here? Hey, is anybody here starting a company? Come to our event on the Saturday and eat. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's stuff going on in the northern part of the state concerning warehousing and shipping. There's data center chaos going on. We already have the Switch, which they've been here for a while, but they don't do AI data center application. So their power requirements and their impact on their water considerations are not quite the same as the ridiculously power hungry and water hungry and resource hungry AI data centers. That's a different discussion. TensorWave doesn't have their data centers in the Vegas area yet. So they're pushing their problems to somebody else. So there's a lot of stuff going on and there's a lot of moving parts. The key industries get a lot of attention. Those are moving parts as well. Who's coming in? How many jobs are they going to create? Who's going to relocate to the Greater Vegas area, risking gentrification, of course? What's going on in their near-term futures if they do establish a presence here? How many wealthy entrepreneurs can come to Vegas for a tech summit and then convince themselves that the extraction economy is their economy? I'm not a fan of that event. And how the larger economic situation is driving some changes in the model, if there are any. That is, the tariffs and the impact on disposable income for leisure, money that would have been spent taking a weekend to go to Vegas, maybe not spent. Obviously, our Canadian visitors have been put off a little bit by the guy. And now we have increases in pricing on gasoline, jet fuel, groceries, natural gas. Interesting times. Helium, of course. We have the platform for data already in place. I already mentioned the open data platform. Code for Vegas played a role with Code for America and City of Las Vegas to establish that. It's still around. If you look for Las Vegas open data, you will land on a website called ArcGIS, Geographical Information Systems. They host open data for many cities. I think they got away from the Socratic API, which is good. So yeah, all this open data for open government, open budgets, open checkbook, I think it is, for outlays of monies. There's one more. And then the LVMPD publishes their data there for incident reports and so on. The RTC, our Regional Transportation Commission, publishes data there. So the existence of an open data platform and the habit of publishing data to it are already in place. We can be publishing a lot more economic data than what's in there. We have various organizations collecting at least some data. I spoke about this in a recent episode. I think the episode was called Show Me the Data. Show Me Data, I think it was. The questions are mostly around keeping data current and disclosing it in a timely and possibly more complete manner. I'm not totally thrilled with how the LVCVA actually publishes some of their data, especially when they roll back to executive summaries as PDFs. Like, just publish spreadsheets or CSV, comma separated value. Somewhat, can we get a RESTful API, something? Anything is better than publishing numerical data as PDF tables. That's ridiculous. So complete, timely, historically complete also. Don't truncate data that's more than 2 years old or whatever they do. If there's anything withheld currently, we should at least know where the empty cells are in the spreadsheet, so to speak, and what they might mean that they are missing. Were they redacted or removed because they were bad? Because we don't want to disclose things? Is the data proprietary? We should know these things. I was talking about this in the context that I think we really need to look at more of a 5-year run rate instead of a year over year for 1 year. Like, sure, we have our current data for April will be published next week. Current data through the end of March, and then we have comparative data for March 2025. Can you show me March from 2021, 22, 23, 24, 25? It'd be interesting to see that trend, I think. So I don't know what prevents that. Surely they do that internally. Big culture. I don't know what I wrote here. I speak most of the culture of innovation. I speak mostly, I think it is. Mostly. Yeah. I speak mostly of the culture of innovation and how I believe it could use some cultivation. You may disagree, and this is certainly in the context of the Innovate for Vegas Foundation. Cultivating a culture of innovation kind of goes along with that, but I think it would benefit the entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem as well. However, the culture in general in Vegas, if I may posit my observations here, is that people in Vegas who do venture out and engage in activities that we can see, so that is people who are pursuing their various adventures in public, not day trading in their boxers or whatever else might come to mind. I know some professional gamblers, they're probably not advertising their efforts so much. So these people are actually a little bit cautious, maybe overly so. That's been my finding thus far. Not everybody. I speak in generalities, but I don't mean universality. Is that a word? I don't mean everyone, but I mean you're going to encounter the examples that I give frequently, but not universally. I had noticed in the early part of my time in Vegas, so like 2016, 14, 15, 16, somewhere in there. After just having moved from Silicon Valley, that was in summer of 2013, so we're coming up on 13 years now, that people I encountered not a part of the downtown project from elsewhere, so people that were not in the downtown project space of startups and so on, who had come here from elsewhere, tended to be more cautious. The people that were actually in the downtown project were a little bit more, they were risk takers because that's why they were there. But the other people I encountered who maybe were not like native in Vegas, but had moved to Vegas and been here for a while. I know I'm qualifying that a lot, but the people I encountered in general who were not a part of the downtown project, how about that? Let's keep it general. Tended to be more cautious and more concerned about what might be in it for them to participate in this or that, whatever it is, including meetups or other such activities. I often joke about this in the Innovate for Vegas Foundation context for hackathons. Is there going to be free food? That does tend to be, not that specifically, but there's sort of a convince me, sell me this pen. Why should I go to your meetup? That kind of thing. You can advertise on meetup.com and you'll get what you get. But if you were to say to someone, hey, we're having a meetup, we're doing a co-work session. If they don't already know you, or if they kind of know you, but not really, there's this a little kind of a standoffishness. I used to describe it as like, it's hard to say. I'm from New Jersey. I got that feel. How about that? We'll just leave it there. My Italian relatives. So yeah, what's in it for me? Do I really want to go? What's up? Do I want to spend my time on this? But yeah, including meetups and stuff like that. Now in the downtown project, they did have meetups, but again, these were the non-risk averse people who had moved to Vegas to pursue their startups. So that's already a group of people who are taking a chance. As I've encountered fewer and fewer of those people, I've definitely seen probably the steady state cultural component that is risk aversion, caution. I've called it solipsism. I think there are people who are a little bit more into themselves and transactional engagements, looking for clients more than looking to help other people, etc. So I know I'm being cynical. That's me. It seemed to me that people were looking over their shoulders almost. Yeah, that was my sense. This is not so much the case now, not in the same exact way over a decade later, but it was something I noticed back then. Now, I think there's just a simple, no, unless there's an identifiable benefit, it's not a question of risk aversion. It's just, no, I don't necessarily want to be helpful before I am looking after myself. Maybe this is a post-pandemic thing. It's hard to say. The lockdowns may have had more of an impact on people and their business and their livelihood and so on. These are weird times. Something that is rampant here in Vegas. I'm going to get some water. Delightful. Something that's rampant here in Vegas. The notion of ghosting people who reach out for something that may not offer some sort of return immediately, or which is not maybe obviously something of value in the short term. like immediately or in the short term, somewhere in there. This is absolutely not universal, and it is not behavior unique to Greater Vegas either. But I am continuously amazed and impressed at, for example, the willingness of people to connect with others in their second and third degree networks on LinkedIn, of all horrible places, but who will otherwise not respond in any way after. Same with email. We try to email people who, introductions and whatnot, and I don't feel, maybe if there was like a heartfelt introduction, like a direct introduction, but anything where it's a little bit more tenuous, I don't feel like replying to you. That's your problem, not mine. Have a nice day. But I'm not even going to send that message. And this also applies to people who are actually already acquainted. There are people I have known since I moved here who could care less about even answering a, hey, how are you doing? Just nothing. Like, man, I don't care. You're not worth responding to unless I need something. Cynical, yes. True, also yes. No, this is not limited to people who already know me, to whom I reach out. So it's not like I'm hated by everybody I know or something like that. Maybe I am. But there is some sort of reticence to get involved without some visible shiny object to draw the attention. Maybe a few clear examples of other people benefiting in some way. Something of a lemming fashion, maybe. I know that's probably insulting, but this is the behavior I have observed for years. Like, hey, do you want to? There is a classic. If you've ever tried to get people to adopt your product, your service in its early days. I had such an undertaking in the Phoenix area many years ago. Hey, do you want to try out this thing we're building? Who else is doing it? That's the first question. Not tell me more about it. Who else is doing it? And this is the network referral effect, the referrer network referral. I think that's what it's called. How likely are you to recommend this, all that? So yeah, I want to know who else. And that's why when you go to social networks, social media, if people like a thing, if they reacted to it in some way, there's part of the presentation, the view on this data is, we'll call out people that who reacted, who liked, etc. So yeah, that's rampant in person. So yeah, ghosting happens otherwise. So, I don't really feel like responding to you. And it's not just people I know, it's everybody. Put that in quotes. Not really, but statistically, it seems like everybody. And I don't want to be insulting, but it's just what I've seen. I'm just calling it like I see it. Of course, I've already pointed out my own observation when it comes to some specific cases of outreach, asks, and so on, particularly when coming from our nonprofit, the Innovate for Vegas Foundation. And this is since we rebooted it out of the ashes of Code for Vegas 4 years ago, June 2022. Show us what you got is what I received from our city. I said, we're named, it's Innovate for Vegas. It's right there in the name. Yeah, we got to be careful who we get behind. So show us what you're working on. Show us what you got, because we need to be careful who we get behind. Now, this is not true of halos, people who are assigned credibility and who are celebrated automatically. If we had a dozen Cybertrucks to give, that might change the terrain and the response a little bit. Who knows? There have been a few scenarios now where people working for entities who claim that this is an innovation hub, so people from the cities, people from the county, etc., who claim a thriving startup scene, that people should relocate and become locals here. That's some other marketing from I assume the LVGEA, or from City of Las Vegas. It might be from the City of Las Vegas, Economic Development, and so on and so on. So we're awesome. We're amazing. Come here. You should bring your family and move here and start your company and bring employees and all kinds of stuff. These messages are not intended to be taken seriously. I kid you not. This is troubling and is also a large missing piece of this puzzle. The connection between claims and actions. Like, hey, we're a big startup scene. Oh, we're an innovation hub. That's a better match. We're an innovation hub. Oh, we have a nonprofit that we have formed. Historically, it's been here for a while. We've rebooted it. It's called Innovate for Vegas. We want to cultivate a culture of innovation. We want to talk about developing job skills. We want to focus on community elevation. Yeah, we got to be careful who we get behind. I got 12 Cybertrucks parked outside. All right, you're in. I worked at Netscape, so I do not know the Horowitz family, but I did work in proximity to the A in A16Z, Marca. That's all I have to say about that. So ideas beyond the box edges, thinking outside the box. For as much a global innovation hub as Greater Vegas would like to claim to be, we are remarkably average in many regards. This is not commentary on specific innovation efforts. There are startups, there are leading edge pursuits happening right now at UNLV, other academic places, research locations, corporate entities, whether startup or existing. There's stuff going on. I don't mean to say that there's nothing. We are at a desert, but not quite that much of a desert. Sometimes they even get some attention, but this is probably true in many places, not making such grandiose claims. Somebody invents something anywhere, they'll probably get some attention. Is there a startup community? Maybe. I've heard references to the standard reading materials from Brad Feld about startup communities. I read at least one of his books, and it's certainly a template, but not a recipe. I think people, from what I've seen, what I've observed, let me read a book, and that's what we'll do. And anybody who's ever, I was almost going to go for the up in the air quote, anybody who's ever built an empire or changed the world has sat where you're sitting now. And it's because they sat there that they were able to do it. And that's the truth. But no, it's not a recipe. It's not a how-to guide. It's not a how-to guide so much as a here's what worked for us. So here's some ideas or starting points, and you should look very closely at your particular situation. What do you have? What do you need? What's missing? What do people think? What do people think is missing? You should use these books as templates and guides, but not the recipe. But we're doing this. We're doing what they did in Denver. Yeah, but this is not Denver. This is not Silicon Valley. It's not Austin. It's not Provo. It's Vegas. I've already quoted Rumsfeld once today, to paraphrase. Nope, yesterday. It's officially after. It's Friday morning now. So I've quoted Rumsfeld once yesterday, none today. But to paraphrase, there are unknown unknowns that need to be addressed. And free lunch does not advance that cause. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. I don't mean to come off as a hater, but from a fundamental, logical, what is going on here, I think it's a problem. I have a self-interest. I have a vested self-interest in seeing our ecosystem thrive. So if I see something that I think is not necessarily helping, not necessarily hurting either, but I think too much of a hat is hung on some things without actually measuring impact and outcome, true benefit. Where are we going? How far have we come? I will claim right now, you need to have at least 10 years. So starting with 7th graders, junior high school students, you need to have 10 years to build up some momentum in their minds about being entrepreneurial. You need to engage people who are already in the ecosystem about taking their ideas and running with them. You need to enable and encourage that stuff. But if you want to go from fun economy to global innovation hub, it's not a post on LinkedIn and you're done. It's years of developing the culture of innovation, the resources, the momentum. As I've said before, and I'm going to refer to it again, but episode 85 of this audio program, Silicon Valley did not start in 2008. It didn't start in 1993 when I got there, although it did get a lot better when I got there. It didn't start in 1971 when Intel launched their first microprocessor, the 4004, followed soon after by the 8008. It didn't start in 1945 or 44 when Frederick Terman returned from being a radar engineer on the East Coast for the war effort, when he returned to be the dean of engineering at Stanford. It didn't start in let me think now, telegraphs and radio tubes, vacuum tubes. That was before World War II, in the early part of the 20th century. It didn't start in 1849 when the gold rush started, but it kind of did, because that's where Leland Stanford made his money. He started a school. He wanted to cultivate a culture of innovation in the Bay Area. The Bay Area was very lovely. It was receiving a lot of government money. Frederick Terman was highly regarded after the war. He convinced the government to move some contract money to the West Coast. He talked to Hewlett and Packard, convinced them to start their company. He convinced Shockley to move closer to his mother in Menlo Park, Shockley Semiconductor, Hence, the Fairchild inherited the traitorous eight. They would go on to start Intel and other companies, making it made it the actual Silicon Valley. Right? All this stuff was happening over decades in that one sector, semiconductors. Even Silicon Valley funding, venture capital started flowing in the early 90s for real. Any idea on a napkin could get money. And Silicon Valley lasted from 1993-ish to arguably 2001, although really closer to 2000. You can blame it on 9/11, but it wasn't. It was already fizzling. But then it made a comeback. Then there was the Great Recession. Then it made another comeback. It's still making another comeback. So Silicon Valley, much like Vegas, tends to reinvent itself on the leading edge of technology. Vegas is more on the leading edge of the fun economy, but so there are some similarities, but it's something to think about a little bit more than we're the next Silicon Valley. Yay! I read it in a book. Someone whom I do not respect in the slightest here in Greater Vegas. Do you want me to tell you how I really feel? It's someone I don't care for here in Greater Vegas, but did say one useful thing out loud one time, sort of like Donald Rumsfeld, perhaps. It's in both senses. I don't really care for Donald Rumsfeld, but he's got that one, I think, one really good quote. There's another really good quote, but it actually may be Daryl Hammond doing an impression of Donald Rumsfeld, so who knows? That people in Vegas need to be told what to do. That was the thing this person said. And I agreed immediately because I think that's true. I talk about the 1-9-90 all the time. The doers, the enablers or followers, and then the 90 is the spectators. People are just watching. Oh, you want me to do what exactly? Will there be free food? So I agreed immediately because it is true for a chunk of the population here. Not everybody, not universally, once again. And with the population turnover, what it is, and some people say that people tend to live here for about 5 years before they move on. I don't know. I don't know about that. It feels like it's very different. I think the Irish goodbye is the way here, and I don't know if people are getting a good, accurate count of when people leave because they don't say goodbye. With the population turnover, what it is, I would have hoped that this would evolve over time and people would start taking some initiative, given the entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem strengths and so much behind the startup scene. Ugh, I don't like that term. But I am still getting that sense after my nearly 13 years here, it'll be 13 years in August, that this is still the case. And I don't know how it's going to change. Again, 10 years, but that's from when you start. We haven't started. My own take compares discussing startup ideas in a coffee shop in Silicon Valley, the real one, versus doing the same here. And I've very briefly sitting at a table in a coffee shop, in a Starbucks of all places, in Santa Clara. I said one time that I'm working on, what are you working on or something? And I could sense that the people at the nearby tables were kind of leaning over like, what's he doing? Who's working on something? Something going on? Something cool happening? Possibilities? So that was just the nature of Silicon Valley. Like, not I want to steal your idea, but something's happening, something. If you do the same here, you have to yell at you, hey, I'm working on a startup. And they'll be like, shh, whatever, man. There's simply a lack of opportunistic curiosity, I guess I could call it. Like, what's going on? It doesn't mean, again, so I may be working on 2 startups already, but I kind of want to know what your idea is. And if you tell me, I'm not going to steal your idea, but I might know someone who could make the difference between success and something else. So the whole idea within the ecosystem with energy, vibrancy, vitality, hey, here's what I'm inventing a thing. And somebody says, oh, here's my, contact my friend here. They're doing something exactly like this. They've done something similar. They probably have some background. They have some information. It could be anything. There's a certain amount of energy in the opportunities that are floating in the air. And again, I'm busy. I'm doing my stuff, but I'm excited to know that other people are also doing their stuff. And I don't know if that's really true here. And to say, oh, but we have that one meeting okay, go sit in a coffee shop and talk about your startup idea and note to yourself that you're not even a slight bit worried that someone's going to take it because nobody's giving you the time of day. So when I suggest that thinking outside the box is something where Greater Vegas may be lagging, I'm not speaking of business ideas or vertical pursuits, like thinking outside the box about your business or startup idea. I'm thinking about the innovation culture. Maybe a sense of risk aversion, maybe not being risk averse. And basically a sense that caution is the watchword. That's the problem. It is risk aversion. And this is not great for an innovation hub. Something I learned again for the first time when I was working for Intel a while ago. I was the only Intel employee in Nevada, which got me a lot of attention. So that was very telling. Wherein I was on airplanes all the time, 100 airplanes a year, to represent the company at hackathons, maker fairs, and so on. Development of products in other places. The thing is this, never say no to travel. That's what I knew it, but I definitely was reminded. Should I take this job at Intel? It's going to be a lot of travel. Yes, you should. And you should travel, take advantage, do it, go for it. Now, there are caveats for people with families or other responsibilities, and in these interesting times, not all travel is what it once was. But the take home back then, and the analogy I'm making here, is to grab opportunities when they are presented or when they are discovered, perhaps, rather than defaulting to, well, what's in it for me? On one path, you will find out, and you will learn a few things and meet a few people along the way. All kinds of things are possible. You may pivot. The thing that you take the big risk on may fail immediately, but then that brings you to a new thing and then twice as much coolness. On the other hand, well, someone else will tell you what you missed out on, perhaps, if you're lucky. You can hear my voice is really not having a good time right now. But we got more going on. We're just under an hour. Water break. So the players, the players, as in don't blame the players, don't hate the players, hate the game. So the people who are moving around in this ecosystem, whether entrepreneurs or innovators or workers enabling the fun economy, or perhaps working at traditional companies like hospitals and warehouses and offices and whatnot, these are the ones who sort of depend on this platform working in some way, the platform being Greater Vegas. I've spoken of the impact on the pandemic lockdowns, and whatnot on cost of living, like rent and sundries. Like rent went up between 25 and 40%, depending on where you were. Groceries got a little bit more expensive. Obtaining things got a little bit more expensive. Amazon got rich or richer. Crazy times, ridiculously unfair to normal people. The vaccines were not microchipped or killing you. I worked at as a CERT volunteer, I worked at a, what do they call it? Point of something. A distribution vaccination point so that you could go and get your shots and so on in North Las Vegas. Anyway, and I did a lot of reading during that time. So don't believe the podcasters, except for this one. So a lot of cost of living issues, rent and sundries and so on, that were problematic for many people. Imagine real gentrification, though, where a change in the economy and the people working within it, and they may be so-called imported talent if companies choose to establish a presence and relocate some of their, or maybe all of their workforce here, which is an admission that we haven't trained a workforce here that's capable of taking those jobs. So that's a different problem. But it could be unpleasant moving forward and not temporarily. The pandemic was going to end. The lockdowns were not going to be permanent. But gentrification is the gift that gives and gives and gives. When I moved to Silicon Valley in 1993, not so bad. It never got cheaper. Santa Clara County was the only place where property values did not decline during the Great Recession. How do I know that? Is that true? The county registrar who kept track of such things was a guy named Lawrence Stone. He was the former mayor of Sunnyvale, the city where I lived. And I actually sat in his office and did a Radio Sunnyvale interview with him about this stuff. So yeah, true story. So the pandemic lockdowns would come to an end. But if we gentrify Greater Vegas, and you can read, I did a whole thing on Austin, and I do not remember the name of the book. Maybe we'll talk about it at the roundtable. But, keep it weird, culture, Austin, music scene, all that. Oh, no, it's the next Silicon Valley. Suddenly, people who were working on 6th and everything were priced out. They had to take They had to take a crappy public transportation systems offerings to get to work. They couldn't afford to live where they used to. The culture was crushed and so on. Austin is not what it used to be. So be careful what we wish for. If you'd like to gentrify Vegas with imported talent, train our native talent better, encourage more startups or local business developments, not imports. Yeah, it could be unpleasant. I landed in Silicon Valley in 1993 after graduating from college, Harvey Mudd College, if you're curious, engineering degree, and lived the rise in salaries and cost of living everywhere. That's where I was and when I was. I lived through it. It was not the best place in the world to be working in that version of a fun economy, lowercase, no trademark, so we can pretend that it's not trademarked. Okay? So the fun economy in Silicon Valley was like restaurants, bars, normal businesses. The people who did great were the people who owned a house or a property that they could rent out to the people like me who were moving into the area and making too much money. And I wasn't making modern day Silicon Valley money, but I was doing fine for the entire time I was there. It was great. We used to wonder though, how can you live in this place and work at In-N-Out? Like, that's not possible. And that's for single people. What if you have a family? Forget about it. This is something to ponder. And replacing workers with automation is not a great path forward. We'll just remove all the human card dealers, gaming dealers, and we'll just all be slot machines. We don't have to have humans interact with them. Do we need bartenders? No. Trust me, that's not a good idea. I have my views about Tech Alley, which are rooted mostly in the limits which arise when one big event receives all the attention, a lot of the participation and opportunity cost. Should I go to Tech Alley or some other event? Well, I mean, I go to Tech Alley all the time. That's the place to be. I got to go there. You cannot schedule all of your classes to be on one day each month and hope to get your full education, for example. It's a similar idea. You got to spread it out. I've already talked in a recent episode about how I think as a platform, it'd be a great way to launch new meetups and kind of build up a little, test it out, build up a little following. Yes, this is worthwhile. Then spin it off so it has its own location. Or if you really need to, have another day that is strictly about the meetups who have graduated away from it. So give other meetups an opportunity, switch it up a little bit. Don't make it into like a fixed event schedule. And a lot of the fixed events, not all, but some of them are like kind of grifty. Yeah, you cannot schedule everything on one day though. I think that's a real problem. That's the opportunity cost part especially. But here is something that I can complain about legitimately, and it's not about Tech Alley in particular. News coverage, accolades, excitement, all the attention, etc., directed at Tech Alley, at Startup Vegas, Startup NV, and so on and so on. But where's the light to shine on the actual startups? Now, I'm not saying they don't get any attention. If you go to Tech Alley, you're going to see, maybe they'll get a spot on the live show that they publish there, or that they produce there. Okay, great. You're going to talk to people over your free victuals. Oh, what are you working on? Oh, I'm working on this. I'm working on that. But how many people are you talking to? How many people are you reaching? 2.4 million people in the greater Vegas area, Clark County. So I call that the greater Vegas area. 2.4 million. If the local news media, we're talking the legacy television and their associated websites and YouTube videos and so on, our papers of record, Review Journal, Las Vegas Sun, other papers like the Nevada Independent, Nevada Current. There are various business papers which mostly focus on larger businesses and real estate. There are business sections. So the Review Journal is starting to add more coverage. Some smaller and startup companies. We'll see where that goes. But if you're not getting in there, you're not getting any, and forget about local content creators. You got to have a swimming pool or pizza, or you got to have something that's appealing to tourists. So if you're just doing a startup around like robotics or biology or something, you're not going to get any coverage. Nobody's going to know what you're working on. We don't do a good job here of telling people what's going on. We don't tell people what people are working on. We don't recognize and celebrate those achievements. We don't talk about failure, which is a huge problem. We definitely learn about new bars and restaurants, though. In the arts district or elsewhere, we will know if some new place is opening or if some place that's been around for a while is closing. There will be some lament. There may not be much notice, as with Beard Papa and Heart Attack Grill, but there may be some, and there may be an opportunity for the owners or management to comment on the state of affairs. Sometimes it's we couldn't keep up with our bills because of the reduction in traffic, foot traffic, or business in general because tourism is down. And that's the second order effect of tourism. Tourism goes down. You have fewer people in the hospitality industry working on the Strip, for example. Those people are taking home less money. They're going out less often to local businesses, so they're not patronizing the local businesses so much. Local businesses who've been around for decades suddenly see a drop off in revenue, can't pay their own employees, Cascade. The field is, wait, what did I? Oh, yeah, we learned about the bars and restaurants. Where do you go to find out about startups, entrepreneurs, and innovation? The field is wide open, perhaps. The coverage, not so much. Real work goes into organizing events and, of course, connecting investors and investment with the entrepreneurs and innovation. All of this is no small affair. But recognition and celebration of people building and making and starting and working and all of it, and even failing, where are they? What's going on? Clapping for each other while snacking on gratis victuals is not the way it works. I'm sorry. And again, episode 85. Startups were front page news in Silicon Valley. San Jose Mercury, San Francisco Chronicle, local papers. There was no internet. I know, it's crazy. It was just getting started. So in 1993, you wanted to know about startups, you read the paper. You talked to people. You hung out in coffee shops with your neck craning, your ear to the pointing at other tables. What's going on? Give me your resume. I'll hand it to my manager. Remember those days when people would actually care enough to do that? So yeah, but real work goes into organizing these events and stuff. So I don't mean to it would be very easy to say, oh, Dan hates the people running Tech Alley or Startup Vegas. With Startup Vegas, that's maybe not untrue, but generally speaking, there is real work that goes into organizing these events, and there's real effort, and sometimes real money is being spent, sometimes out of pocket, even though people aren't aware of that all the time. But making these connections is important. And how do we make those connections? One way is through these events, but another way is to advertise that there is startups going on, and then what they're working on, what they're accomplishing, and progress that's being made, and a place for them to announce things that's free but reaches people. Try finding a local reporter that will respond in some way. Good luck. Yeah, clapping for each other. And I'm not saying that that's bad, but you're talking to the same people. I call it the 300. If we could get the entire startup scene in one place for a picture, how many people would be there? Our foundation, the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, is pursuing a few things lately. 100% of outreach to educators and to local media regarding these events that we're trying to put together that are focused on youth innovation and cultivation of innovation culture, where they're inclusive of everyone of every age, every interest area. The Smarter Smart City Challenge is a full year, inviting everyone in the greater Vegas area to participate, inviting all students. Hey, educators, would you like to help us reach out to your students and engage for this year-long event about innovation and community elevation? Hey, local media, do you want to talk about this in the slightest? Ghosted across the board. This is not surprise anymore, of course, but 100% of our outreach was ghosted to both of these groups. I included the superintendent of the Clark County School District. I included the editors and executive producers of some of the outlets here for the media space. I haven't reached out to a YouTuber. Nothing. This is not a surprise anymore, of course, but it is a sign of a problem. The problem in a nutshell, we are looking up for leadership to guide these various efforts and to celebrate them and what they have to say and what they, and this is not nothing, but we're doing this rather than across. We're not looking to our peers and maybe down a little bit to those up and comers who are putting in the effort and making some observations and taking action in those directions. The people who will ultimately make things happen without much notice in the early days. Nobody's going to be looking down and saying, oh, what is this cool idea you're working on? They're looking up. Who's organizing for us? Who's doing this for us? We need to be told what to do. This is the way of Vegas. If we keep looking to organizers, faux community builders, and the like, well, we may as well be asking the wedding planner how various couples are doing. Or we could speak to the couples directly. The wedding planner is important, but, do I really need to clarify this? Talk to people starting businesses. Talk to entrepreneurs and innovators. Talk to them. Celebrate, recognize and celebrate their efforts. And let's include failures so people can learn from each other in situ. This is the last section. Aren't we excited? I got 1 hour, 11 minutes, so it'll probably be 1 hour and 25. That's my guess. Sorry for the keystrokes. Previous section was the players. Now it's the game. I myself was in Silicon Valley twice, once from 1993 to 2001. A little break in there to move back to Phoenix and enjoy the fabulous downturn in consulting possibilities after 9/11. I literally finished moving in August of 2001, thinking that I would be working remotely and change of scenery and all that. Well, then I moved back in 2005 because the Phoenix job market was not compatible with the Silicon Valley mindset. That's just the way it was back then. Today, totally different story. So in 2005 until 2013, I had moved back moved back to Silicon Valley for my second tour. It was not at all like the first time, but still educational. Until 2013, April of 2013, a little house fire brought me back to Vegas for the Downtown Project days. Brought me to Vegas, not back. Brought me to Vegas for the Downtown Project days. Again, August of 2013. Though I wrote thought, silly. Though I was working at Intel, seeing how much brilliance is out there in the world. Here's the deal. Silicon Valley was not all put together in 1993, as many people might think it was. I already went through some of the timeline. Worst cell phone coverage ever in Silicon Valley at the time, in the 90s. Traffic was, and I got my first cell phone when I was working at Netscape, Singular, which became, what did it become? T-Mobile. Singular, Nokia 2160. No, did it become T-Mobile? No. What did Singular became AT&T? Is that right? Who cares? Yeah, worst cell phone coverage ever, though. Your call would drop while you're driving down the street. Crazy. This is Silicon Valley. We're making these things. What's going on? We can't use them. Internet connectivity was also up in the air until I got my DSL connection way back when. I was one of the first 50 people in Sunnyvale to get a connection. That was a learning experience too. Traffic was crazy. It still is. We could only imagine how expensive it would get. I mean, it was reasonable when I moved there out of college. Forget about it. The thing was, innovation was baked in since the gold rush days, as I already described. And if you don't believe me, flip back to episode 85 of this audio program, or just listen again to the first part of this program, and learn about Leland Stanford, picks and shovels, and a school named after his son, Leland Jr., I think it was Jr., who passed away when he was 15. I can't remember what disease he had, but the school is actually named for his son. So you can flip through episode 85 to kick it off. I sometimes think Greater Vegas, if it is going to be the next Silicon Valley, which is an expression that seems to have faded of late, and this is a good thing, if Greater Vegas was going to be the next Silicon Valley, it would be Silicon Valley before the Silicon. Maybe it would be the Silicon Valley of the 70s, with a lot of work to do ahead of it, but potential for success, based on a culture of innovation that had been around for probably up to a century by then. I would like to see more creativity and innovative thinking directed inward, thinking outside the box in this case, before it was thinking outside in the other sense. Thinking outside the box in this case is about that, about taking the silly systems we have in place right now, our so-called smart city, if we can even call them systems, and making them better. So when we think outside the box in this case, we are thinking specifically about building technologies and developing products and services and so on, but focused on here, focused on our backyard, not pointing out, pointing in. City as a Showcase, another previous episode, but City as a Showcase, another previous episode, is where we show off making our smart city smarter to our tens of millions of annual visitors. That's the point. City as a Showcase is not, let's try to be innovative in all areas, Hollywood 2.0, the center, the global center of biotech research, healthcare, exercise science, fintech. So all these key industries, they're fine being here, but we're not going to lead the world, right? We lead the world in like brand recognition for destination city, and for water conservation, recovery, and sustainability in the worst possible as well. It's not the worst possible. Our desalinization plants, which I don't think we have, are not under threat right now, but that would be the worst. So we're up there. A lot of useful and noteworthy water and sustainability research happens right here in Greater Vegas, Southern Nevada. Where am I? Okay. Ask people who come here for trade shows and conventions when they have to come here for those. So they show up on Tuesday morning maybe, and they leave Tuesday night or Wednesday night. And I've asked people this. You can do the same. Why they don't like going out and experiencing our smart city. Oh, I hate coming here. I come here and I leave. I don't even want to get a room. Why? Because I hate coming here. Oh, because we're not a smart city. Not really. Despite some claims, it turns out we're just, and we're getting worse perhaps, arguably. We're just here to make a buck. We're here to charge fees, what is it? Yeah, resort fees. Resort fees, overpriced, honor bar, whatever, conveniences in the room, disappointment in general. People are noticing. Why not make this a smarter smart city by taking a hard look at things that could be done better, at human experiences that could be improved upon, especially around accessibility, assistive technologies, attention to detail on the leading, even cutting edge in these areas? Why don't we make this a truly universal city when it comes to communication? English, Spanish, Tagalog, those are the top 3 languages according to stats, but they're people living here. With 38 to 42 million people visiting this area, you're going to get a couple of extra languages in there. There should never be, this is a problem that's been solved. People wandering around Vegas from Japan or Germany or Poland, for examples, those are actual examples of people I've interacted with. They shouldn't be looking around saying, I hope someone is willing to help me because I don't know. So I have helped people from those places, for example. It's not hard. You just have to take a moment. And again, the tools are available. We just have to make sure that the tools that they are using, the websites, the resources that they're counting on to get around this wonderful city should be speaking to them, not speaking to English, Spanish, and Tagalog speakers only. And I'm not saying nothing is translated, but we should never have to wonder if someone in a wheelchair, with a cane, with vision impairments, with hearing limitations, or who doesn't speak English, Spanish, or Tagalog, whether they have access to Greater Vegas, especially if they're here. Come on, we can do better. Yeah, we should be a smarter smart city, period. We should make our so-called global innovation hub a place that is actually innovative, starting right here at ground zero. Global innovation hub that is making itself its own best example. Final point. Looks like we made it. A mistake. Let me get some water. I can't believe we're almost here. A mistake that was made in Silicon Valley, possibly as we were coming out of the Bush recession when I first got there, 93. I moved there in July of 1993. I worked at Supermac. I got laid off in October 1st, I think it was. And eventually I would work at Apple, and that's when the fun began. So we were entering the Clinton economy, witnessing the birth of the Al Gore internet. We stopped looking in our backyards there. We started thinking almost exclusively an awful lot about venture capital, incentive stock options, exits, roadshows, startups, getting rich, changing the world, moving fast and breaking things eventually. The whole startup thing was the thing. And that was fun. But where did that get Silicon Valley today? And in some ways, the entire state. I mean, Silicon Valley was certainly an economic driver. A lot of revenues coming in for the state in general. Still plenty of money today. But whenever you hear about how awful the streets of San Francisco are, maybe people not making it all the way to an actual bathroom, for example, how difficult it is. And that's not the only problem, and I don't mean to minimize that because that's kind of sucks for everybody, including people in that situation. How difficult is it for some people to live in houses, to keep up with the cost of living, to exist with jobs other than top-tier programmer? And even they are having some challenges lately. Lots and lots of layoffs. Blame AI. Even though it's not really AI, but that's another thing. It's an excuse. Ask yourself how it got like that. I will offer my views. Why are fires burning once again, placing expensive homes and apparently the Reagan Library? And by the way, any home is valuable to the person living in it. Is expensive is only one element. If someone lives in a home and it's about to be burned down, to them it doesn't really matter how much it costs. It's going to be gone. And I was not in quite that situation, but house fire is a life changer. It is a learning experience. So, and every year this happens. We used to joke in an ironic way, perhaps. Why do people live in a tornado alley in the Midwest? Right? Every year tornadoes would come through, rip up homes and stuff. Why do they keep rebuilding there? Well, every year California has these massive fires. California leads the world as a technology hub for real, a real global innovation hub. So much technology available, so much money is made, and yet, what's his name? The Horowitz Foundation is spending money here in Vegas. Okay. Marca is staying in California. Why not put couple $1 million towards how can we stop people's homes from burning down? Can we put the fires out sooner? Like, these are things that should be on the top of mind. How about that? So why are fires burning once again? Who knows? But they happen every year. Predictable. Why did the people in California and Silicon Valley in particular forget to keep the place working on the leading edge itself? Keep your home working. There's a rule. I'm a CERT volunteer, and I also did SNAP when I was in Sunnyvale. Sunnyvale Neighbors Actively Prepared. They tell you the first thing, and by the way, this applies to lifeguards. This applies to anyone who is trying to help others. Step one, make sure you are okay. Make sure you are situated. Make sure you have your protective equipment. Make sure you have your whatever is going to get you to step two. Make sure you are okay, or you cannot help others, right? So make sure California, make sure Silicon Valley, make sure Sunnyvale, where I was living, you got to start where you are first. And I would wonder sometimes, like, how did they get to this place? Oh, because 100% profit chasing. We got to beat the competition. We got more. The highest technology is coming from a place where people simply forgot. So don't let that happen here. So those missing pieces I referred to here, and the ones that we'll talk about at the Genius Roundtable second cohort one of these days, the reports we will write to describe the things that we discover and learn and want to recommend based on our real experiences and our observations and our knowledge and our conversations and our debates. These are the things that didn't necessarily, I'm not saying they didn't do any of this stuff, but we don't need to make the same mistake. We don't need to there's already some signs. There's already a lot of Elon Musk here. That's not great. But those missing pieces, we should start thinking about those and maybe not believe the hype so much. Actually look around, see what's going on, and see if you would like to make it better. That's all I have to say about that. You can check out those other episodes if you want, wherever you found this audio program. I always recommend, I think one of the more interesting episodes of this program that I've done with a lot of references. So there's a lot of links to like YouTube videos and documentation. There's a YouTube video. I think it's a single video. Some are multiple parts. So I linked to the first part. It was a presentation at Stanford given by Stanford somebody. They didn't even really talk about Frederick Terman, who is considered the father of Silicon Valley. He was the dean of engineering and the provost, engineering provost at Stanford. So dean, provost, talked to Hewlett and Packard, Shockley, the whole nine. They barely mentioned him because there was so much other stuff to talk about. So the educational resources, the culture of innovation, the momentum, these are things that don't just happen overnight. So it's something to think about. If you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want to start a small business, if you want to make things happen, do cool stuff in the greater Vegas area, maybe you're just doing it already. But if you are waiting for someone else to make things happen, to enable, to remove hurdles and whatnot, you better have a Halo or a dozen Cybertrucks ready. People better love you, because otherwise you got to show me what you got, because we got to be careful who we get behind. I'll talk to you next week. Same time, Friday morning. Bye-bye.